All that brings us to today's program with our current governor. Past President Sonny Derousseau was instrumental in putting this together. Thank you, Sonny. We appreciate it. For the very few of you who do not know Sonny Derousseau, he has had a storied career as a banker. He was the founding chairman of Atlantic Capital Bank and Atlantic Capital Bank Shares, after serving as vice chairman of Synovus Financial Corporation and as CEO, director, and board chairman of Security Bank and Trust Company of Albany. Did I say that correctly? Albany. Sonny began his professional career as an attorney and practiced law in Albany from 1972 to 1991. He has served as chairman of numerous boards, including the Georgia Bankers Association, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, and the Georgia Historical Society. He's also served as a longtime trustee of Emory University. We are looking forward to our program in a couple of weeks with Dr. Ravi. Sonny received the Marion Luther Britain Service Award from Emory. He was listed as an Atlanta Business Chronicle's most influential Atlantan, most admired CEO, and one of those folks in Georgia Trends who influence everything. Most importantly, as past president, he set the example of service above self by working to bring the Rotary International Conference to Atlanta all the way back in 2017. So Sonny, thank you for leading by example. Please come on up and introduce the governor. We are looking forward to his remarks and your conversation.
Wow. I think my mom, if she were living, would have written that introduction. So thank you so much for that introduction. Okay. While we have recognized her, I want us to once again recognize and welcome the #1 First Lady in the nation, Georgia's First Lady, Marty Kemp. Marty, welcome. Governor Kemp, for those of you who may not know it, is a native of Athens, and guess where he graduated from college? The University of Georgia. He was elected in 2018 as Georgia's 83rd governor. He was reelected in 2022 to a second term. He has been an exceptional example and an exceptional governor. As you probably read in his bio, during COVID, he was very quick to get business back rolling and open us up for business. We were the first state, in fact, in the country to do so, and as a result of that, Georgia's unemployment rate is the lowest in history. And recently, Georgia, for the 11th consecutive time, has been chosen by Area Magazine to be the best state in which to do business, and just recently by Site Selection Magazine to be the #1 state for business climate in the country, which says a lot about his leadership and the kind of state that he's leading. And so certainly we're grateful for all that he's done along that line. He is presently serving as chair of the Republican Governors Association for this year, 2025. Several years ago, in his first term, I had the privilege of introducing the governor at the Georgia quail hunt down in Albany. And I told the group at that time that I'd had the privilege of practicing law with George Busby before he was elected governor, and that I had followed George during his career. He had always focused on economic development, about trying to create a hub, an economic hub in Georgia and global commerce and improving the lives of Georgians. And I said, I think that Governor Kemp is cut from that same bolt of cloth, and I believe he's going to be an excellent governor. Well, Governor, you've not disappointed us in any way. Please join me in welcoming our governor, Governor Brian Kemp.
Thank y'all very much. You know, Sonny, I was thinking out after that introduction you got, you might want to run for governor in 2026. I also was thinking when you mentioned during COVID, I was very quick to, I thought you say get criticized. But Marty and I are honored to be back with you guys. As y'all know, the new legislative session has started, so we're looking for every reason possible to get away from the Gold Dome. So I want to thank y'all for helping us on the first day of session. We only got 30 more to go. Paige, just thank you for, such a great memory and tribute to President Carter. Marty and the girls and I were just honored to be part of that. It made me very proud to be a Georgian, but also proud to be an American, to see the way this country treats a former president, not a former Democratic president or Republican president, but just a president. And it was incredible. The service in Washington, D.C. was just really something I'm glad Marty and I got to be part of. But I know y'all have had a busy few weeks, and we have too, but congratulations on a great job. Also, just going to let you know, since we got a couple of storm mentions there, the team did a great job, as was already alluded to. But we're fixing to put out an order extending the state of emergency for fuel, so we can move fuel around the state. We're still trying to get caught up, or at least our jobbers and convenience store folks are, and also trying to get propane to poultry houses because of cold weather. This will not apply to food or catering. I don't think the last one did either, but people read a lot of different things in there. Normally Justin Farmer would be already tweeting about this, but he's not worried about new news anymore. But I just want to thank you guys for your support in being just such a big part of the business and community leadership roles that you have, and I want to thank y'all for being part of that. And certainly our First Lady has just done an incredible job working with many of you all to cause very dear to her and to our family, and that's a fight to end human trafficking in our state. She has championed that for years now, really ever since we took office, and as a result, we're now a national leader on that issue. And as a direct result of her efforts, this year we'll be introducing our 10th piece of legislation to combat the evil industry. And the other 9, I think there's only 1 or 2 votes out of all 9 pieces of legislation against them. So she's done a great job, and just want to thank you all for being engaged in that. I'm also happy to report that thanks to the hard work of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit and the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Prosecution Unit, we've now secured 52 convictions against human traffickers, investigated over 331 cases of sexual exploitation, and rescued an amazing 200 victims from this horrible crime. I also want to highlight that to date, the Human Trafficking Prosecution Unit, under the leadership of Attorney General Chris Carr, has a 100% conviction rate. We are thankful for his shared commitment to fighting this good fight, and we're mindful that behind every one of those numbers is a life and a family that have been saved. And so we are not going to let up when it comes to this fight. And so, as I know Marty would want me to do, I want to continue to encourage you all to help us spread the word about this issue as business and community leaders, and help bring this fight directly to the offenders. We have an equal level of commitment when it comes to bringing the fights to street gangs and violent criminals in our state. Between the GBI's Gang Task Force, the Department of Public Safety's efforts, and the partnership that we have with local law enforcement, they've made through the Crime Suppression Unit and the Attorney General's Gang Prosecution Unit that we created early in my administration and have since expanded, we have disrupted gang activity in Georgia in a fundamental way. This past year in Metro Atlanta alone, we saw 498 gang-related crime charges, 90 gang indictments, and more on the way. Over 559 kilos of meth seized, over 20 kilos of fentanyl, which, by the way, is 10 million times a lethal amount. And law enforcement has seized over $540,000 worth of drugs, firearms, and other illegal items. Thanks to the hard work of our Crime Suppression Unit, Here in Atlanta, we've taken 45 murder suspects off our streets, made 61 stunt or street racing arrests or citations, made over 1,100 reckless driving stops, and recovered almost $26.5 million worth of stolen vehicles. And that's just since we stood up the Crime Suppression Unit in 2021. And it does not count all the success we're having in other major cities around our state. I am proud of those successes, and Marty and I are beyond grateful to our state and local law enforcement. After facing baseless attacks, out-of-touch calls for defunding, a summer of unrest and violence, and pressures from all sides, including the media at times, those who wear the badge and guard our streets still should have our unwavering support. That is why we are thankful for the latest public safety asset to come online that will further strengthen our communities, and that is the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. After years of difficult challenges and destructive attacks from those who operate outside the legal process, the completed center is ready to serve generations of first responders and how to best save lives and protect others. There are many people to thank for this milestone, some of them here with us today. In addition to your support, I want to highlight two leaders in particular who are always committed to keeping others safe. They have not backed down from unfair fights and insults that they have faced on this issue. They have also not given an inch to radical out-of-state forces who tried to stop this project in every step of the way. And I'm talking about Mayor Andre Dickens and Chief Darren Shirebaum, whose resilience and strength made the completion of the center possible. I want to congratulate them on this accomplishment and the people of Atlanta, whose community will be safer as a result. And I know I saw Dave Wilkinson in the audience too in the Atlanta Police Foundation. We appreciate all of their efforts. But with safer streets comes more dangerous prisons, where we now house the most violent offenders and gang members that our state has ever seen. Our commitment to public safety is unfailing, from our communities to our correction system. That's why my administration, exactly a week ago today, did the largest increase in funding for Georgia prison system in state history. Between the two budget proposals I will unveil later this week, we will put over $600 million additional dollars toward growing our corrections workforce and strengthening our prison facilities so that criminals behind bars aren't still able to operate beyond the prison walls. Despite what the Atlanta paper will try to tell you, this is something that we have been working on a very long time, because we know what they refuse to admit. Georgia is facing the same issue as every other state in the country. Starting during the pandemic, America saw unprecedented growth in new and hardened criminal activity, and Georgia was certainly not immune to that. But unlike other states, we've been doing something about it. We've refused to let criminals take over places that should be safe: our neighborhoods, our stores, our place of business, and our street corners. And as we've taken the fight to those who go after innocent Georgians, we've stressed the need for a prison system capable of dealing with that new level of violence, and most of all, capable of keeping Georgians like you and your family safe. That's why we raised all correctional officers' pay by $3,000 last year, on top of the 10% pay we put in place in 2021. And it's why my latest recommendations will call for a further salary increase of 4% across the board, as well as a step system where officers have automatic increases along their careers. These measures also don't include the various one-time pay supplements we've given to those in our corrections system over the years. The media has not been quick to share this, but as a result of those investments, retention rates for the Georgia Department of Corrections has gone up every year since fiscal year 2022, and the agency has seen employment growth every month for the better part of a year now. In fact, the turnover rate for corrections officers has improved by over 34% since we started making these investments. We're also making generational investments for a new state-of-the-art prison designed to house violent offenders effectively and efficiently while keeping everyone behind the prison walls safe. Construction on that $1 billion asset began last year, and it will certainly have a meaningful impact on our entire prison system. For the latest investment proposals we made last week, we engaged outside independent subject matter experts 6 months ago to give us their recommendations on how we can best strengthen and improve our prison system. We're only halfway through the current contract with them, and they're already delivering strong results. Rest assured, we will keep our head down and keep working to keep your families, your neighborhoods, and your businesses safe. That is one of the reasons that we've been chosen, as was mentioned earlier, time and time again, as the best state for business, including the recent survey from Site Selection magazine that was mentioned. And these are the people that actually make those decisions as job creators. I know Commissioner Pat Wilson's here with his great Department of Economic Development team, the best in the country. Pat, thank you for what you do. Also, we got some great news recently that Atlanta was ranked the third best city in America for corporate headquarters in that same survey. Those job creators know that bringing opportunity and investment to Georgia is a safe bet, and also that their employees will be safe. But our most coveted position as the best state for opportunity is facing a serious threat, especially for those who run a small business. As many of you have heard me talk before about this, it's becoming increasingly expensive and difficult to run a business due to out-of-control insurance costs, which are in turn driven by growing numbers and the size of tort cases. That's why we're working hard with our partners in the legislature, the private sector, and in the legal field to help us tackle this issue in a fair and effective way. You'll hear me speak more on the need for tort reform later this week, but just know that if the status quo continues, we will lose job creation, investment, and hardworking professionals to other states around us who have stabilized this sector of business. So I want to close by again thanking you all for being such great partners on so many business and community issues here in the city of Atlanta and here in our state. We are making real results, or you are, for hardworking Georgians, and I just want to thank you and Rotary for what you do in that regards. Thank you all for having us, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for those remarks.
When you going to announce?
I am actually running for the county line, I'll tell you that. Your administration, both terms, you've been very focused on economic development, and we've heard about some of these recent recognitions of Georgia. Give us an update more, if you can, on what's going on for economic development, and also you're always focused on skilled labor. Tell us what we're doing to.
Yeah, that really kind of goes hand in hand, quite honestly. I mean, it's something that Pat and the technical college system, university system, the K through 12 system, we're all working on that issue because even if we didn't make another job announcement probably for the next year, we've got so many jobs that are being created that we've already announced, and this is I'm just talking about the projects that the state's had involvement with. There's things happening organically here in the city of Atlanta and Columbus and Macon, Savannah every day that we're not a part of. We're going to continue to be in a really good spot. But one of the commitments that we made with these great companies, especially these larger projects that are coming like a Hyundai or, SK and other big investments that we've had, is that we would supply the workforce that they need, not only when that job's created this year or next year, but a lot of these jobs are going to take 5 years to ramp up. So we got to have all those people 5 years from now. And so Our pipeline on the economic development side is still really good. Things kind of slowed down a little bit before the election because I think people just wanted to see which way things were going to go. And now that everybody knows, they know what's coming, regardless of what candidate would have got elected, people just would have an idea of which way, where they need to focus and shift to get their priorities done. So, we're seeing a little bit more activity. I think that will continue after the inauguration, and I feel like, despite the turmoil that's out there in the world economy with China being slow, Europe in a mess, other things that are going on. I mean, I would think Pat would tell you, just like I would, we feel really good about our pipeline in Georgia. We're shifting our focus a little bit off of big mega projects, other than our one site that we have left in Peach County, to more smaller supplier type things and diversifying where they're going. So we're spreading the job growth through all communities throughout the state, and then just continuing to drive existing industry and business. But with that, we got to have the workforce. And so we're very fortunate in our higher education system with Chancellor Purdue and the university system. I know President Cabrera and Blake are here today. Our technical college system with Commissioner Dozier continues to work with the private sector. I think they're doing a really good job. Our HBCUs are as well. I saw Dr. French and Montgomery Rice here as well. So everybody's kind of focused on producing the graduate that we need for the business that we have in the state, whether it's cyber in Augusta, healthcare, IT in Atlanta, whatever, engineering. We're doing that in our trades too, whether it's from truck drivers to welders to plumbers or rural physicians, nurses, and allied health. And so we got to continue doing that. One of the things that we're having to focus on, because if you look at our high school age population, that demographic's flattening out. It's going to start dropping. So we're not going to have the pool that's been growing every year in our state as our state's grown. So we got to figure out how to get more of these kids to go get that skill, whether it's at TCSG or a university system school. So we implemented the Georgia Match program. It's been 2 years, believe it or not, now, where we sent a letter to every high school senior in this state, and based off their transcripts, we are letting them know that they are automatically accepted into a number of institutions, colleges, universities, but also technical colleges. A lot of the kids that are out there, their parents didn't go to any of those institutions. They don't know about the Hope Scholarship. I know Gretchen Corbin's here. They don't know about the Hope Grant, and they don't know that their child can actually go do that, basically tuition free in the great state of Georgia. And we implemented that program. After the first year, our technical college enrollment went up 9.2%, and our USG enrollment went up over 6%, which is incredible in this environment. The key is we got to keep this going even as our high school population continues to drop. So we're doing a lot of things to continue to do that. Also, last year we worked with the General Assembly to have one list of our high demand career fields in our state instead of having a bunch of lists. So it gives all our education institutional people to know what's in high demand. I mean, we need more engineers, we need more doctors, we need nurses, but we also need more truck drivers, we need more welders, we need more electricians and carpenters and heating and air technicians and other things. So we got a lot going on from that front. But y'all, I would take our environment in this state over anybody else's in the country. We got a diverse economy. We have great Fortune 500 businesses. I know I saw Chris Womack come in. We are at a unique advantage in this state with Georgia Power and our EMCs to have a system where we can move very quickly to grow our infrastructure to meet the needs that are out there. Everything from data centers to large manufacturing and other things that we're doing in this state. And not every state can do that. And that's why you're going to see us continue to grow, as well as the infrastructure that we put in the Port of Savannah, and then the great job the city continues to do with the Atlanta Airport. We have a lot of really good advantages here as the capital of the Southeast, and I think that's going to continue. As long as we have a good business environment, it's going to continue to drive growth here.
Well, that's great news, and thank you, Governor. Here in Atlanta, we're always interested in transportation and what's happening in transportation, and you've made some major dollars available to GDOT, not only for the metro area, but for the state. Can you give us an update on how some of that's going?
Well, I feel like we're working on every road, everywhere I go. I may be going places that we're not, but there's a lot of road construction going on, a lot of other good things that are happening. Part of that is last year, because of our really conservative budgeting, not just for myself, but our partners in the General Assembly, I think have really done a great job over the last several years dealing with the recession from the pandemic, the growth coming out of that, to really keep state government lean and mean, which is a good value for the taxpayer. We've also been able to cut taxes, cut bureaucracy, but it's allowed us to have a lot of one-time revenue. And so my message to our state leadership, Speaker Burns, Lieutenant Governor, and others is, I'm fine spending some of the one-time money we got. We just don't need to build new big government programs that when that money runs out, then we got to go back and start cutting, healthcare programs or other things. So we're trying to use the one-time money to make generational investments. And we have done that in transportation and infrastructure. Last year, we put an additional $1.6 billion to speed up projects in our state. Which is really going to be helpful for us. A lot of that was focused on the freight study that was done. We know what we got to do to move people in the metro area, and if you literally drive anywhere, you can see where that's in place right now with all the work that's done on, at I-20, 285, and just everywhere in between, managed lanes and other things that we're, trying to. The good thing is we're growing so fast, we've done so well, it's hard to catch up with that growth, but we're chasing it about as good as you can. But we also need to continue to focus on our freight networks with goods and services coming out of the Port of Savannah and other places around the state that also helps mitigate our traffic congestion and our safety on the roads. And so last year, a lot of that money went to freight. A lot of it went, $250 million went straight to the locals. And this was cash, so we could get that money to them very quickly. It's helping them pave roads, design bridges, build bridges at the local area. Literally every local government in the state can get access to this money, so we put an additional $250 million in there. I know about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they said that 92% of that money had already been allocated. So it is getting out there, it's getting put to work. And that's one reason I work with the General Assembly to do that, because knowing the economic environment that we're in, I want to keep people working in Georgia. I want them to be getting a paycheck every week. I want them to have money in their pocket, because if that's happening, they're going to have a good attitude despite what's going on in other states or other places around the world. And that is half the battle to us having a good economy and people feeling like, hey, I can, take my kids to the Braves game or the Falcons game, or I can, pay for their medical bills, or I can, get their back to school supplies. And so that's one reason we've done that. I think you'll see more of that in the budget this year. We'll continue to look for ways that we can help do things that we're not already doing, which is a lot, but also how we can keep people working.
Thank you, Governor. I cut his introduction short because of time, but one of the things that I do want to highlight is the fact that Governor Kemp served as Secretary of State from 2010 to 2018, and he was in the Georgia State Senate from 2003 to 2007. So he understands from his own experience how this works, and I think that's one of the reasons he's so effective and we're being so successful in this state.
I'll tell you one thing, when I have a bad day as governor, I just remind myself I'm not Secretary of State anymore.
Those were tough days, weren't they? You were serving.
They were tough, but they weren't as tough after I left either.
you're serving as the chair of the Republican Governors Association. What do you hope to achieve that year, and what's the aim of the governors this year in terms of anything that you're focused on?
Well, you're asking me a partisan question, Sonny, so I'll try to be diplomatic. But I'm honored to be serving. Governor Perdue served as a chairman of the Republican Governors Association when he was in office. Really, whether it's the chair of the Democratic Governors Association or Republican, our job is to raise money to help get Republican governors elected around the country, and the other side's doing the same thing. But it's a great opportunity for me. We're serving with a lot of really effective governors. I think if you look around the country, especially post-COVID, there's a big difference in the policy divide that's out there, at least in my opinion. And I think it's one reason the Southeast and the South continues to grow is because we have great business-friendly Republican governors that are for less regulation. We're in a cut taxes war all across the South to make the business environment good. You're seeing the population moving this way. You're seeing GDP growth 2 years ago for the first time ever in the history of the country. The South outpaced the Northeast, which is pretty amazing when you start thinking about, Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, New Jersey, and other things. And so, my goal is just going to be to help us raise a lot of money and continue to get good people elected. Regardless of which side you're pulling for or not, the next 2 years are going to be really fascinating to watch. There's 2 governor's races in 2025, which is New Jersey and Virginia. So it'll be a tough year for Republicans in both of those states. But, there is bright spots of optimism about the politics in both those states. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But then the following year, we'll have 36 governor's races. And you're going to have a lot of states like Georgia will have an open race for governor. Kansas, who has a Democratic governor now, which is really a pretty red Republican state, that'll be an open race for governor. You'll have your typical swing states like Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. And so it's just going to be a 2-year battle royal to raise a lot of money on both sides to help get good people elected. And the good thing for me is giving me I'm getting to work obviously with my Republican colleagues, but also getting to meet a lot of good people around the country and tell them how great Georgia is and that they should leave places like California and move their business here.
Governor, one last question before we take a couple of questions from the audience. What can we as the Rotary Club of Atlanta do to support you in your priorities and your initiatives to make Georgia a better place to live and work and raise our families?
Well, that's a great question. I thank y'all for that. I know you're already doing a lot of that. I mentioned earlier about just continuing to help us spread the word on Marty's and the Grace Commission and really the work the legislature's done. I mean, Georgia's doing more than any state in the country and really has put the blueprint out there for how to end human trafficking, go after the perpetrators, but also to help the innocent victims of this horrible crime, many which are children. So, we have a great 30-minute training thing on the governor's website where literally anybody, your business, your nonprofit group, civic clubs, whatever, just take 30 minutes to see the signs of human trafficking so that if you see something, you can say something. On our economic development efforts, the biggest thing you probably could do for us right now is just tell everybody about the Georgia Match program. Make sure that, all these kids know that when they're a high school senior, they're going to get this letter and they're going to be automatically accepted. So they don't have to fill out a form. They don't have to pay $25. Now, they're not going to be enrolled. They'll have to do the enrollment, but it just takes a lot of the bureaucracy out and helps raise the awareness to the great opportunities that we have, at places like Georgia State, Georgia Tech, but also at our technical colleges too. If people are looking more for a trade type track and just help us spread that word. Y'all are already, a lot of people in this room are already doing a lot of things to help keep our city and our state safe and drive our business environment. And I'll just tell you to keep at it. We're looking forward to working with you.
Great, thank you. We do have time for a couple of questions.
A couple of questions. Katie, you're up first.
Katie,
Yeah, and Governor, my high school senior received his Georgia Match letter, so I have seen one in real life. I just wanted to, one, extend a thank you for the infrastructure investment that was announced today for the city of Savannah. Incredible investment in their water infrastructure there, and we know that economic development is tied directly to access to infrastructure like water and roads. And just wanted to ask you, we're here as City of Atlanta, and we experienced some water main breaks over the summer that made national headlines. How can we support you and perhaps create better alignment between local governments and state government for increased investment in our water infrastructure?
Well, I think on the, the other thing that we did last year, and there's discussions about potentially doing this again, depending on demand that's out there, was we put, I can't remember if it's 250 million or $500 million more money into the GFA fund, which is basically the Georgia Environmental, fund that people have, where if they're doing, it's low interest government loans for infrastructure projects, water, sewer, and other things. And so, we're continuing to put money in that pot because we know as our state grows, our city's got to grow, especially cities that, were small and now have these huge investments, like in Effingham County or wherever. There's a lot of demand that's coming very quickly, and so we're trying to help make sure we got resources that are out there to do that. I mean, the city of Atlanta infrastructure issues have been, I remember when I was in the Senate, Kasim Reed was a state senator then, and the Republicans had just taken over the Senate when Governor Perdue got elected. The Democrats controlled the House, and we did a bipartisan deal to help Shirley Franklin when she was mayor dealing with, I think it was a stormwater issue. So, the state's used to working with cities to do things like that, and we're also trying to be helpful with the GFA funding.
Thank you. One more question.
Thank you for your service, Governor Kemp. Do you want to be president?
Oh, my God. When are you going to announce, Governor?
Well, if you can appoint me, I'll reluctantly take the job. Other than that, I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
I think
I'm really happy in my day job, by the way.
One last question from Margie.
Yes, Margie Stagmeyer, Mission Partners. So every job in Georgia that's created that pays, let's say, $100,000 a year, there's 3 jobs that are created that pay less than 40. Obviously, we have a housing crisis in Georgia. Can you please talk a little bit about your plan for housing?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that, and that this is a big issue, not only for our state, but a lot of other states too. And I have the belief that no matter what your profession is, you should be able to afford to live in the community where you work. That's easier said than done, but that's the goal that we should have. If you're a police officer, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, if you're working at a nonprofit, other things that are important to our community. And so the last 2 years, we've had the Rural Workforce Housing Initiative where, I'm trying to remember how much money I think we put like $40 or $50 million into a grant, and it is a competitive grant, which is a good way to do it. But we're basically putting seed money out there for private developers and local economic development authorities or local governments can apply for these grants to do affordable housing. And it's Chris Nunn, the Commissioner for the Department of Community Affairs, runs the grant program and works with these folks. And so we've seen great success. I'm going to be talking about our numbers in a few days. But the money we did 2 years ago got all used up. We put additional money in there. And so we've still got projects that are coming out nonstop all over where people we're offsetting the infrastructure cost, but also making the local governments and the developer put skin in the game to just lower the infrastructure lot cost basically so you can build a more affordable house that will work in that community for working Georgians that are out there.
Thank you.
It's a tough issue though, but most big cities in every state in the country that's growing like we are dealing with this.
Before we thank Governor Kemp and Sonny and adjourn the meeting, I want to remind you all there'll be no Rotary next week in observance of MLK Day. We'll resume on January the 27th with Ravi Tadani. the scope that Ravi touches in our healthcare industry out of Emory is stunning. So we're looking forward to that program. And then Dennis, you're back up with Raphael, the Dennis and Raphael show that everybody looks forward to every year. So if you have questions for Raphael, feed it to Dennis now already. Sonny, thank you for putting this together. Governor Kemp and First Lady, thank you both for your service. We accept your challenge. We have a long history in this club of tackling sex trafficking. That's not new to us. So we're all over that and the Grace Commission and spreading the word about the match program. Thank you for being here, despite there being a state of emergency around logistics. And good luck with the legislative session. So thank you to everybody.